make sure that
This is Dustin D'Agostino, and he's going to talk on Camp Meade.
All right. How you guys doing? Glad to be here. Appreciate being asked to be here. Camp Meade has been a passion of mine for like about the last 10, 12 years. I'm a metal detectorist. I know if any of you have farms or older homes, you probably have people knocking on your doors. Well, I'm one of those guys. But I'm here for the history part of it. Not here for, getting wealthy or any of that. I just like chasing the history. Been married 25 years, have 2 kids. I own my own apartment rental business, my own antique business. I do have cards for metal detecting and the antiques over with the artifacts. I got started in this. Basically, I got a metal detector and I had to lose weight. And I got started metal detecting, and I grew up fishing down in Middletown, passing all the fields, all the farms on my way to Foulmouth and Red Hill Dam and all the great spots. So I got my metal detector and decided, I know the area, I'll just start knocking on people's doors. And have my towel, please. A little hot up here, probably from me. But I started to knock on the doors of the local homes and the farms, and a lot of the people in the area are very passionate about history if you approach it the right way. And apparently I approach it the right way, and I've gotten a lot of permissions. The first one was Tom Williams, has the Williams Farm in Middletown, right in Lower Swift Township. And I started there, and I found out about a gentleman, Fred. I don't want to say his name wrong. Does anyone know how to say his last name? It begins with a G. We have his book right over here.
Yeah.
So got in contact with him through social media. He said, I'll tell you where to go at the Williams Farm. Well, he had done in the 90s extensive research, wrote a very extensive book, and it was that everything was set to that bar. And what I did is I went out and found out that the camp was much bigger than what they thought, that there were a lot of things that came with the camps, such as pop-up businesses, mom and pop selling stuff out of their house, and that the troops actually were pretty mismanaged from the standpoint that they just kept sending them there. From all over the southeast and the southern parts of the country, they're sending troops to Middletown because it was so big. Everyone's just sending orders. Send your troops out of where you're at because of sickness, dysentery, typhoid. Everything was going wrong in the camps before that. So that's how everyone got led to Middletown. But I'm going to start out with, if you don't mind, just going through the history of it through a timeline. And basically it starts out with the Spanish-American War. As we all know, it was a short-lived war. The combat lasted 10 weeks. In 1898, basically what happened is United States was growing. We wanted the Philippines, we wanted Guam, we wanted Cuba, we wanted the sugar, and we wanted the rubber. Point blank, period, the end of the story. They recently found out that the Maine was sunk. The battleship Maine, which led to the war, was sunk from the inside out. So it wasn't the Spanish that started the war. They didn't want to start the war because they knew they couldn't win it. So we end up, the Maine explodes, and the beginning of yellow journalism, and I'm sure you guys have all heard of that, that starts with, I think it was William Randolph Hearst, who owned one of the biggest newspapers of the day. And basically, it wasn't McKinley who wanted war, it was the media. If you guys can believe that. Can you believe the media would do something dishonest like that?
Just like today.
Don't even go there. It's so preposterous that anyone would think that. However, it's true. So, the media and the businesses that were to benefit from this, Ford Ford Motors was going to be one of the biggest benefactors of Guam. They pushed it. So they sent Frederick Remington, who was a famous artist at the time, out to Cuba and said, paint us pictures of the atrocities and we will get you a war. Lo and behold, the Maine explodes. Journalism had everyone in the country To one benefit though, everyone was united like never before. It was the first time we were united since the Civil War. So the entire country got together. I remember Grandpa Walton talking about it on the Waltons. So the whole country got together and pulled behind, and we went to war. So McKinley goes to Congress, we declare war on Spain. They find it's happened so quick because it wasn't our government pushing us towards it. If they were, they would have been a little bit more ready, you would think. But because it wasn't our government pushing us towards it and they got cornered into it, they weren't ready. So we had makeshift camps all throughout the South: Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Virginia, you name Florida. And so the initial reaction was send everyone south to get acclimated to the heat. And so that's what they did. They formed a volunteer army. They didn't even have to, like, they had a very, very small regular army. So with the fever pitch of patriotism, they got a huge volunteer army to go, okay? And Teddy Roosevelt's whooping them up, you know, we're gonna go, we're gonna fight. And so they go. They get everyone to enlist, and we're talking Civil War veterans, Mexican War veterans, you name it, Seminole Indian War veterans are fighting in this Cuban War, or Spanish-American War, I should say. So anyways, long story short, we go through this process of starting out, and the men start getting sick in these makeshift camps. And I mean, like, probably 10% of every 1,000 troops were getting typhoid. And typhoid is basically your insides come out, you know, you're just on the pot, you're everywhere, everything, you're losing everything. When you're in the Army, let me backtrack even a little more. Typhoid takes effect over a few weeks. So you don't just wake up one day with all these symptoms. Well, and when you're in the Army, they don't give you a day off for an upset tummy or anything. And back then it was probably even a little worse. You probably got a slap upside your head if you complained. And these guys would be out in the down south in full wool uniforms in the heat, drilling and acclimating themselves to get ready to go to the Philippines or Spain or Cuba or wherever they were going to go. They didn't know yet. So they're down there and they're starting to drop like flies. And, you know, it got to a point where it was an emergency. This is in the first 2 or 3 days of declaring war. We already have hundreds of soldiers dying that died, and they're listed as casualties of war, as they should be. But they're already dying. Before the first bullet was even shot, Camp Meade already had X amount of people dead, on top of all these camps before Camp Meade. So they sent the Corps engineers out all across the central part of the country looking for suitable camps to rescue these soldiers, essentially, so they can train them and send them to war and stop them from dying of typhoid. So Camp Alger was in Virginia, and that was hit very, very hard with it. You know, we're looking at maybe 20-30% of the number of troops, and I think at one point they had about 20,000. So, you know, doing the math, that's a lot of guys falling out and dying, not just being sick, but dead. So Corps engineers is out here. They find that, hey, this place is awesome. There's, you know, we have natural springs all through Middletown. Highspire was a growing little city at that time. It wasn't even as spread out as it is. It had more buildings towards the airport that are going, that you know, they're not here anymore. Probably gone before even you folks were born. You know, a whole part of the town was gone with the airport. You know, I didn't mean that in a funny way. Just I saw some reaction. But it's been a long time, you know, and people don't realize there was a whole other way of life before then. I mean, Middletown, Highspire fed the Revolutionary War, planted the seeds for the Declaration of Independence, fed the Whiskey Rebellion. George Washington came right through here on his way to Carlisle to crush the Whiskey Rebellion. A lot of history that nobody knows was even here. And you can even say modern history. No one even knows Olmsted was here. You know, ask a 20-year-old about Olmsted Air Force Base and they'd be like, or a 30 or a 40-year-old, you know? So, you know, it's just amazing the history that's been lost. So most of the buildings and infrastructure that were used at that time were unfortunately by the airport, but some of them still lie throughout parts of the town. Not too many at this point, but more lie down towards the other end. So getting back on point, we're now in this war. We're losing troops. Typhoid's running just absolutely rampant. You know, we finally get the Corps of Engineers up here. They said there's great water. We got the river. Not only we have that, Highspire had one of the first electric trolleys. So we had an electric trolley that could take these guys into Steelton and Harrisburg. We also had a canal system. So we had one of the first canal systems coming through here. We also had a train tracks coming through. And if you even look at State College, where these train tracks come off and just run into a mound of dirt, those are the tracks that went up to where the troops got off. You know what I'm talking about? When you're driving, you're continually driving down here and you see a train track just verge into the main campus, and it merges right into like a hill and it's gone. Well, that is where they carried the troops right up into there. The main beginning part of the camp was the Penn State main campus. That's where it started. And then it spread like wildfire, out of control. It spread east, west, north, and south. And they had no concept of what they had once it was here. So they brought everyone here. They figured, we have the water, we have game, we have farm fields, we have wheat, we have great transportation. This is a great area to bring. And it really was. So the troops get here. Now, you know, as they're getting here, the tides of the war have started. Okay, we already had sent out. We had guys. They were ready to go. Teddy Roosevelt had pretty much financed his own way to get there, and his own troops, his own equipment, and was ready to go. So they went out under the banner of the United States Army, which he served. So it was the United States Army, but in all essence, it was a private force. So they go out and they start, and they get in a few battles, the Battle of San Juan Hill and all the others, and they're kicking butt, and not really major scale battles as we have seen in the big wars or even the Civil War, but battles nonetheless. We overwhelmingly won all but one of them, but that really didn't have much to do with the war at this point. You know, at this point, the war with Spain's power was its navy. So we get about 4 or 5 weeks into it, and we go to war. We corner their navy, and Dewey destroys it, obliterates the great Spanish Armada. Now we're talking an armada that started in the 1600s, 1700s, and ruled the oceans, robbed billions and trillions of dollars from the South America and brought it home to the mother country. So this was no joke, but it was. They were not their technology wasn't there. We were already on to metal, steam, propelled ammunition, all of that. So we obliterate their fleet in, I think it was a 2 or 3 day battle. One sailor died on our side of heat exhaustion. But we destroyed over 20 ships and countless sailors. That was the end of it. So you get to about week 6 or 7 now, and we don't even know if these guys are going to go. The war looks like it's going to end. Spain was holding on, but only in token by saying, no, we don't surrender. But in all intents and purposes, we disarmed them. They were done. They were at guerrilla warfare at that point. So we get back to Camp Meade, and I got a little bit ahead, and I wanted to tell you a little bit more about Camp Meade after the Corps founded. And it was named after George Meade, who was a Civil War general. He actually is the hero general of Gettysburg. He's the first to really defeat Lee, and the only reason he didn't make bigger history is because he didn't finish him off. And so eventually he was replaced with Grant, and then Grant and Sherman took over, and you guys should know the rest of that. But he was a very good general and started out, lowest ranks possible. And the funny thing is that I just found out the camp was commanded by William M. Graham, okay? I didn't know it until doing a little research, you know, a while back, but recently, he was married to George Meade's sister. So they named the camp after George Meade, and his brother-in-law takes command of the camp. I never knew that until just recently. So I found that pretty interesting. And also, the camp commander, William Graham, he was a Civil War veteran, and he also started his career as a lieutenant in the Civil War. And when he retired in 1898, he retired at one of the highest ranks as Major General. So for William Graham to have been put into the camp was a pretty big deal from the standpoint is that they picked a straight up hero. It'd be like putting Eisenhower in charge of the army, you know. It's the same thing. They picked a hero and they put him in charge, and they knew that no matter what, whether it be a political sense or even on the regimen and the strictness, that they were going to get their best out of him. That was the type of gentleman he was. The camp itself started with the Pennsylvania 8th Regiment, okay? That was the first regiment that actually occupied the camp, and there's about 1,000 of them. There were guys that came from York, Schuylkill County, Franklin County, Dauphin County, and one of the corps in there were called the Harrisburg Grays. Also Cumberland and Lancaster. I do know that I think in the graveyard in Middletown, there are a few of these gentlemen who succumbed to disease and their injuries at the camp. The camp itself lost over 100 guys. So in essence, for 30,000, that's not bad at all. You're looking at less than 0.5%. And in military terms, that's pretty darn good. So the camp lost a good deal of men to that. They also discharged a lot of guys for, you know, being too weak to perform. There were desertions. They didn't call them AWOL then. It was just straight up desertion. And a lot of those guys left. One of the things that I did that I found is, I don't know if you're familiar with Oberlin Road. There's a farm there. It's called Shope's Farm. No one had any idea until I hit it with a metal detector that the camp was part of that. So I'm metal detecting around there, finding buttons and all kinds of souvenirs and stuff from the 8th. From the 8th. Apparently they moved their camp around a bunch of times. So the most interesting part was, I go to Mr. Shope and I said, Mr. Shope, you gotta look at some of these things. Did you know Camp Meade was here? Well, yeah, why didn't you ask me? So he sits me down, he starts telling me stories, and he goes, my grandfather told me how when, you know, he was younger, he had to always go out and yell at the troops because they'd be trying to steal the eggs and the chickens out of the chicken coops. And I said, you're kidding me. No. And he goes, they were over here, and I said, were they over there? He goes, yeah, they were over there. I'm like, yeah, I found that's where I started finding stuff. So the history even escapes common knowledge, you know, and that's what I mean, how they were getting out of control as far as how many troops they were sending in. And, you know, it's a typical thing with the military. I served in the military. I served in the National Guard as well. Left hand really rarely knows what the right is doing, you know. So we have that little conundrum of the troops really spreading out. The main supply of food and water was in town. And as these troops kept spreading out, they were getting separated. And that's why certain groups moved around, and they did it to hunt too. So they're you know, I detected Yenota, every part of their property, every inch of what they owned before it was sold. And they were everywhere through their property as well. But especially in the woods, they were hunting in the woods. So a lot of these guys were basically feeding themselves. Certain companies were out self-supporting themselves. And in the course of metal detecting and getting out there and finding tokens and stuff, I came across a token and it says C.H. Baker. Well, it was a gentleman that he started, and if I looked in one of the Highspire historical business things, something going way back, he was in business for 3 months. The same 3 months that they put the camp in. That was it. He came and he made bread, served the bread, probably moved to Mount Gretna, I don't know, but he just went going on. And a lot of people did that with their sundries. They'd come, they'd sell them out of wagons, and they'd just move on with the camps wherever they went. Wherever the soldiers went, they went. They never saw in this area 30,000 people in their lives. You know, never. Even the Middletown Fair, it would be a close call as, you know, that many people, and that was X amount of years later. The history just predated even the camp by 100 years. And it was just amazing, the historical content that came out of there. Not to mention the coinage, the, you know, shell casings, the bullets, the suspender clips, the medals, the buttons, buckles, all these things, horseshoes. You know, I brought a horseshoe because no one's seen a horse in the field since the 30s or 40s. You know, but they had cavalry here. So they had cavalry all going through here, through Yadnota property, through Williams Farm, up and down, all the way as far as Shopes, across the highway to Fulling Mill Road. So Fulling Mill Road, I metal detected what's called Harmony Hall. That was the headquarters, the 2nd Division. So that was a find there, and I found all the corresponding artifacts to go with it. And what told me that's what it was is the Historical Society's map. I got a hold of that at some point, and I actually purchased it. And so I had the map, and I'm looking at Fulling Mill, and I'm like, oh, that's what it is. And lo and behold, you know, I found everything to correspond with it. And then you come off that, and then you hit that patch of wasteland with 3 spec homes. So then you go all the way to Williams Farm, and his farm was just covered littered with everything that you could imagine. Squeeze box reeds, harmonica reeds, buttons, you name it.
How deep is it? The stuff you're finding?
This anywhere from 3 to 6 inches, but no deeper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just the way they stopped rototilling and started the reverse planting, so things stopped going deeper, and they're surprisingly closer to the surface than you would think.
Why does pottery keep coming up through the soil?
The earth gives and takes. It really does. When it's growing or shifting, some things of lighter weight will come up. Okay, some things of heavier weights will go down. Now, if it's a tree growing or it's a place that weeds are growing, just depends on the root system coming up, it will bring shards right to the surface. And that's how I find a lot of areas and a lot of dumps, is I'll try to identify those telltale signs of stuff coming up. It's funny, the earth takes and she gives, because I find rings for people, earrings, all kinds of stuff that she took, you know, and I took it back. So, so getting around here, we're getting towards the end here, because literally the war was over before the guys could go anywhere. It's been 10 weeks. Combat's done. It's all over. So all these guys, they had done their duty. A lot of them died, but they never even had a chance to go over. We never officially sent a real army unit over there, other than Teddy Roosevelt and one backup force, like a couple thousand troops. We never needed to. They had nothing for us. So if you're Spanish descent, sorry. Camp life was Groundhog Day. Every day was Groundhog Day. You wake up for reveille. You got to be fully dressed in the heat. If you guys grew up here, I grew up here. This place can get very humid come August, September, October, right? Imagine that in a full wool uniform, undergarments, all that crazy stuff. And these guys are out there every day waking up at like 5 a.m. trying to find food for some of them. Some of them are fed. They got to go on with their details, whatever they are. They have a morning reveille. I found thousands of shell casings, thousands. And there's other metal detectorists that have, you know, gone in and research. And the amount of ordnance they were shooting off was incredible. You know, you had, if someone died, you'd have a 21 gun salute. You know, if someone in the morning for reveille, who knows if they shot in the air. I don't know what all their protocols were back then. But then you had in the middle, if you go from Middletown High School and go diagonal to the one farm, which the farmhouse used to be called the Nomans owned it, and they recently sold it. They shot from there over to there into a bank. So I know if anyone knows a little bit about the camp, that a lot of the soldiers would go to Mount Gretna to fire their rifles for practice. Well, that's only partially true. That was only some of them, and probably not many at all. They actually fired into that field. There's hillsides littered with thousands of bullets. You just pull the bullet out, and if you look over there at the artifacts, you'll see shell casings and bullets. And we found musket balls, different ordnance, from Civil War ordnance. You know, you have the guys that would come visit the camps and shoot with guys, to as modern as only really 1898, which was a 30-40 Krieg. Kind of like a Remington 30-30 shell. Like a nice sized bullet, it'll do the damage. But it was their earlier version, and they were using some German ammunition at that time. I don't know why, we weren't using Mausers. But anyway, the camp life was just, it was incredibly terrible. I don't know any other way to put it. They woke up tired, they went to bed tired, they probably woke up hungry and went to bed hungry too. It was hot, it was grueling. The only rest they got is when they could go swimming and to clean down here off the canal, right in the Susquehanna. And they would come down by the airport, and they had platforms built out into the river, and they would go out there, and that was their relaxation. Or if they went hunting or anything like that, some would go into Harrisburg. They would go into the towns, and I don't know really what there was to do in Harrisburg in 1898. It escapes me, but they'd go. I'm sure there was things to see. Independence Island was probably still going on then. So anyways, at this point, McKinley came in November. He reviewed the troops. 3 weeks later, that was the end. It was his second trip here. The first time he went through, he was on vacation with his wife. And then on the way back, he stopped and did an official review where they actually used all of Tom Williams' farm fields. It had thousands, I think they said it was like 12,000 troops all at once out on those fields. And then get Noda where they have, it's called the parade ground, the field, but it's where they ran the oil line through on their one big field. And in there, they reviewed as well. But McKinley didn't go to that. Major General Graham went to that. McKinley only went to the one out on Fulling Mill. But that was the big one. At that point, there was over 30,000 troops. There was well over 30,000. In my estimation, they probably have 40,000 troops in and out of this place in that amount of time. In December, they mustered the troops out. The local troops got mustered out, which means they were let go out of their military obligation to go home. They started with some of the local troops first. It was the easiest to get them out. And then at that point, they disbanded the regular troops to other camps. Because once again, remember, this was a volunteer army. So there was very few professional soldiers, career soldiers in this army at this point. Now afterwards, more soldiers stayed in, but we were still ill-equipped for World War I. But that's another story. So anyways, at this point, December comes, camp's done, everyone goes. The last group to go ended up being the 8th Pennsylvania. They were the last to leave. So you would think that's the end of the story for the camp, but no. The troops that were overseas, the few volunteers that were overseas, had to come back to their various areas. So they opened the camp up briefly, but just at the campus. And for that one, they went in and they probably gave them a few weeks to make sure they weren't sick and process them out, and then they were mustered out to go home. They opened the camp briefly again in 1899. We took the Philippines. Spain gave them to us, but they forgot to tell the Filipino people. So we went to war with the Philippines very, very briefly. but they had opened the camp to muster in locals to send out. But once again, it was mostly at the main Capitol campus. That's it. That's it. I mean, really, that was the end of the campus after that. And there was no real drama or stories to go with those muster outs because they'd come in, they'd be there a week or less, maybe 2 weeks, and then they'd process right out and go home. But that camp, it's an incredible piece of history, and so much of it's been lost. Buildings that were hospitals were lost, you know. Businesses that were stores were lost. Fields, you know, lost, you know, for things that we consider progress. And I'm just glad that I was able to go out and save the history I saved. I'm happy to be here to talk to you folks and tell you what I know. And I appreciate every one of you for staying awake. If you have any questions, I have no problem answering them.
You have a photo there of Roosevelt and Marlowe Hoover.
Do I?
Yeah.
No, over there is McKinley.
Well, I said, but Roosevelt, I have a picture at home.
Oh, you have a picture. I'm sorry. Okay.
I was wondering if you had one.
No,
It was a
no,
newspaper.
no. I just
My
have.
grandfather and Roosevelt.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't have that. Well, and you're talking about Teddy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't here.
No.
Yeah, he wasn't here. Did your grandfather go serve with him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did he actually go? Like he was in San Juan and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's.
He was about 14 years old, probably.
I believe it. I believe it. And that is amazing. That really is. And the only reason I don't know that is because it's not more of the local history. But was it in a local newspaper?
I don't know what newspaper. I just have a photo of it.
Okay. All right. But, you know, I will look. What's your last name?
Hoover.
Was that his last name?
Sure.
Okay. I'll see if I can find. There are certain roles that show where they serve, what units. I just have to get in the Penn State Archives to look. But I'll look for you. But, you know, there were people from Middletown that served. And I'm pretty sure there's at least 2 or 3 in the cemetery from Middletown that served and passed away. Any other questions?
If you ever do find it, here's my business card.
Yeah,
That's my
absolutely.
business card.
All right.
Don't read it all, though.
You don't read the back.
Fine and dandy, drinking brandy, smoking dope, jumping rope, popping pills, climbing hills, drinking wine, and feeling fine. God bless you.
Don't ask him how he's doing.
You didn't even ask me what my business was.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Because you're selling something that's going to make me probably feel
Well, you
too
have to look
good.
at the card to see what my business was.
Well, there is no business on it.
No, and you didn't ask me what my business was.
What is your business?
None of your business.
This would have been one of the ones discharged. Get the hell out of here.
Don't put your foot. I want to get Larry Holmes.
Anyone else have any questions?
Justin, in your knowledge of Camp Meade, were they actual structural hospitals available and actual?
They actually had the hospital buildings in downtown, Middletown itself, and some of the buildings that were in Middletown. And they had one, the big one was close to the airport.
I was gonna say there was a building that they told me that it's currently still there. They tore buildings close by the current building. They tore them down, and I was always told that the brick building that's there now was a former hospital.
Yeah, yes. But they had 3 or 4 at one point, you know. But yeah, that is right. That's absolutely correct.
That's the only one that's left.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. As far as structures for the soldiers, they basically built what are called Kwanzai Huts. They basically just took wood, framed it out, and then put canvas tarps over it, and that was their structure. And that's the sutlers, the people that brought in the sundries, they would do the same. They'd build a makeshift little Kwanzai hut and do the same thing. I did see a picture of interest off the Capitol campus I know the library the Penn State Library has it, and it shows they had some Native Americans as well that they were going to bring along as guides to help them. Same generalization mindset. Oh, they lived in the hot weather. They killed lots of us, so they should be good to go. But there's pictures of the Kwanzai Huts and then teepees off the Capitol campus. So I always thought that was really interesting. I've not found anything Native American yet in Middletown. I mean, I've found Native American artifacts plenty other places, but not Middletown yet. So that answers your question and some. Any other questions?
Is there any memorials to this day of any of the soldiers anywhere around?
All I know is there's a marker on, I think it's 441, but as far as a memorial for the soldiers, I don't think there is. I do not believe there is. And I think after learning how many died, you know, how many were discharged, meaning they were just sick as dogs. Who knows what happened when they went home? Most probably died, half died. You know, we didn't even have penicillin yet. So, you know, to escape injury of any kind, you have to just be lucky. I think there should be a marker, at least a memorial. You know, we put memorials for every little doggone thing, you know, but there's a memorial of volunteers that should be out there. Volunteers. No one drafted them, you know. So these guys, they took all that, the young guys, the 14, 15-year-olds,
My grandfather.
they're thinking of the romanticism, the Civil War. I'm going to go be a patriot and I'm going to honor my family and my country. Something very few people, I shouldn't say no one, very few people cherish today at a younger age. You know, at a younger age, I say. So, you know, as a veteran who served as well, you know, like sometimes it's a little disheartening, you know, when you read about, I do a lot of reading about veterans and stuff and how many, even in Vietnam, were enlisting at 15 and 16 years old. You know, they had that sense of patriotic duty. God bless them, you know, and they went and they fought. And some got mad when they got kicked out, you know. The little drummer boy in the Civil War, he was 12 years old. He wouldn't go away. Little Clem rose to be a general in the end, you know, so you just never know. But yeah, there should be a memorial, I believe. A real memorial, not a roadside sign that people gaze at. I mean, but no, there isn't, unfortunately. That I know of.
This marker you mentioned, do you know where that is?
Yeah, if you go on 441 Oberlin Road, I think it's right past the high school, if memory serves me. It's just a blue marker. Like when you go to Middletown, they have the Colonel Byrd one.
Yeah, the historical marker.
Yeah, historical marker. It's the same kind of marker, but it's just a real, you know, I think it just says Camp Meade. Anything else? All right.
Very good.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys for listening. I really do.
Thanks for your enthusiasm.
Oh, listen, I chase history. You know, it's what I do. I care about my family, my Lord first and foremost, but history comes in second, man. I hate to see it get lost in time. And if I can save it physically, I will. And I've saved a lot of history in the area. I will ask any of you when you leave, I have cards there for metal detecting. I have cards for we have an antique business, my wife and I. If you're selling, if you're buying, whatever it may be, get a hold of us. If you have an older property or know of a field or whatever, let me know. I don't leave any signs of what I do where I do it. And I also give back almost everything I find to the owner. When you look at the shadow boxes in here, which I do encourage you to go in and look and see, and I'll be in here if you want to ask any questions too. But I do, you know, if you guys want to find history, want to learn more about your property, let me know. Karen at Harmony Hall had no clue as to the extent of what we found out. Me and her mom went to town. Her mom went to town on the genealogy end, and I went to town on the metal detecting end. And when we came back, we found a history so rich in that place, it was unreal. Unreal. So, you know, you just never know what you may have at your house or, you know, on a field or whatever. But feel free to take a card. And I appreciate you folks for showing up and enjoying yourselves and listening.
I'm gonna fire up my metal detector.
What you got?
I just got one I bought off the internet.
Well,
And I know there's,
grab
right
it.
behind my house, they used to pull the barges out of the canal.
Oh, yeah.
And there's all kind, man, stuff keep coming up out of the ground.
Some of the things I have over there aren't from the Spanish-American War. I have some Native American stuff. I have some nicer coins that I've found
Yeah.
over the years. There's a 1812 U.S. militia belt plate buckle that I found on the Pennsylvania Canal. I was getting to you.
Yeah,
Up in Juniata. I haven't done the Middletown yet.
I'm right by the ball field,
Okay.
right across the stream.
Okay.
And they used to pull the barges off up there and
Yeah.
repair them.
Grab a card and give me a call.
Hey, come to my house, you can go right in my backyard, go right down there and see it.
Call me.
It's yours.
Because I don't want to bug anyone.
No.
You know, I came here, and if someone wants to take a card and call me, I'll come out. And if
Chances
you
of
want
me
to,
going down there are slim
Yeah.
to none.
please, by all means, you know, give me a call. I'd appreciate
Sure.
it. Because I'm always looking for new places to go.
Sure.
And I enjoy sitting. I'm doing the Spig Farm, Spiegelmeyer's out off Longview Road. I'm doing their farmhouse right now, and I'm getting a shadow box ready to give them. And I enjoy nothing more than sitting down with a family. I sat down with the Shope family, and they had their grandchildren there, and I had them holding, you know, old Indian head pennies and old silver dimes and stuff. And you know, I enjoy nothing better than sharing the experience with anyone. She'll tell you. She shares more than I share with her more than she likes.
You know, the antique shop, you say?
We are located at up at Sledworks in Duncannon,
Okay.
and we're in an old factory in Hummelstown.
I know where it's at.
Old factory in Hummelstown. We're the only true antique stand up in there.
In the back part, there's a guy, you don't have all that stuff in the back, do you?
What's that? No,
No, all kind of tables, stuff like that.
no. If you
Well, Cuppy's old dining room set is up there, was up there.
really
Yeah,
at Sledworks,
yeah. In the back where they have
we
the,
got to talk to Jimmy.
you ever go back there and have ice cream?
Back in the day, yeah.
When
Yeah.
they had, they give a great big bowl of ice cream?
Yeah, we used to go have hot dogs and people serving there. Yeah, I remember that. I'm sorry. Did you have something? Deb, did you have something?
Oh, yeah, I wanted to ask you what type of items you found out at Harmony Hall when you were out there researching.
I found a real nice button. When you'll look at the one display, you'll see 3 buttons, and they came from Harmony Hall and from Mr. Shope's farm. A real nice gold gilt, you know, where they painted it with the gold leaf. I found, if you go there, she actually has a shadow box with a lot of the things I found. Coins, badges, like military badges, silverware, utensils, you know, it shows the whole camp life.
Now,
And-
do you clean these things up or just keep them as is?
It just depends. It really does depend. Like coins, I clean a coin to a point. But for me with the coins, it's about as long as I can see it. Now I'll over clean things that I can't see good enough with my eyes because I want to see it better, and it might hurt a value or something. But when you have silver bullion, you know, basically, and you'll see in there, that's just a tenth of what I have. But yeah, I clean some of it, you know, but to make it presentable, I clean it that far.
I thought maybe you were had a place in Middletown.
No.
My daughter used to have an antique place down there.
No, you know, she works full time, and with the apartment buildings, my main business is apartment rentals, and it's up towards Hazleton. And I'd love to have. She knows I would love to open my own antique business in my own location, but well, we're so stretched so thin now.
Yeah, she's smiling.
Yeah, we've had these talks. I'm not kidding. When I say these things, I'm not kidding. We've had these discussions, and she's like, "Just you got too much going on. When are you gonna be able to metal detect?" Oh, you're right.
Maybe I can get
Just
rid of some
wait a
antiques I
couple
have.
years.
Call me. Call me.
I have a table that the leg come out, and I have a big chest, and it opens up, and that fits inside there.
Really?
Oh yeah,
That's neat.
yeah. And I think it was Civil War. I really
That's
do.
neat.
I can't prove it, but you know,
Well, the other thing I can appraise it for you too,
yeah.
but I can buy it too.
Maybe even maybe it's not anything.
Well, I'll let you know.
Okay.
I'm serious. You know, call me.
I'm serious too.
Anybody else?
Just wait a couple years, you can open up your shops and have the kids run it.
I think my daughter's actually gravitating closer to that. You know, well, she has a few more years of working at her job, and then I think we might do something. We might. Anybody else? You guys ready to look at the artifact?
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead and filter through, and I'll come in behind you guys. If you have any questions, let me know. Oh, thank you.
I've been doing it